Yes. Let me today's sequence. Yeah, so let us get started since we have a limited time. Has everyone logged in with their computers so that whenever I ask you to, whenever I request you to code along? Yes, Happy Republic Day, Swati. Then I hope everyone is in a position to do that. So keep your STS open and ready. I'll give you the instructions shortly. So what is it we are going to do today? We will continue. We'll start with a quick revision. And then I want to continue to lesser XML and larger part of annotation. So we will enter annotations in Spring today. And then I want to take you to, I will give you the MVC overview, model view controller overview. And then we are going to spend the rest of the time, the major amount of time today in Spring MVC. So that's the plan. And if you want to, because today we don't have a lab session, separate lab session, that is why I requested you to code along with me. So I had suggested something like for canceling admission and all that. Has anyone tried Hibernate related stuff? Okay, you have tried. Succeeded? Worked? Okay, great to know. So any such things we'll directly do in the tomorrow is what? Tomorrow is Thursday, so tomorrow's lab. So right now I'll not spend time in that. So everyone created the Spring-based project by now and revised whatever we said yesterday before explicit wiring, auto wiring, Spring Bean lifecycle. So let me start asking you, who is going to manage the Spring Bean lifecycle? Spring container, web container, or a programmer? Obvious question. Of course, the answer is Spring container. So why Spring? You know, there are tons of reasons. Simplification of Java code, integration master, loose coupling between dependents and dependencies, and many more. Reduction of boilerplate code, implementation of standard patterns, so many reasons. So if anyone asks you, what are the inputs you have to supply to Spring Container so that it can give you industry grade, ready to use application? What are the two inputs you have to supply to the Spring Container? Anyone? If you refer to that. No. Akshata, you are not this thing. I'm not talking about bean IDs and all. I said, what are the inputs you have to supply to Spring Container, the inputs to Spring Container, so that container can perform. Dhaneshwar, you are giving me only one, but you are right. Configuration. Configuration means, let's say the metadata instructions. You've not gone through the this thing diagram. And who is going to write these Spring Bean classes? Programmer or Spring Container, P or SC? Of course, programmer. So what are the two inputs Spring Container requires? I'm talking about the Spring Container IOC diagram. Of course, the Spring Bean classes, the class you have to write, the logic you have to write, and the, not only XML, the configuration can come either in XML or in the annotation or something called as Java configuration format. So you have seen only XML. So that is the input. So after that, now let me revise quickly Spring Bean lifecycle. I hope you have gone through it yesterday. So tell me, after the Spring Container starts. So, okay, a small question. Which is the main interface which represents the Spring Container? This much of a Spring API, everyone has to know. I've given it in detailed diagram. No idea? Guys, no, not Bean interface. What is the name of the interface? Yeah, OS is ORG Spring Framework, so it's a wrong answer. It's a Bean Factory. No, the root interface is OSBF, ORG Spring Framework Beans Factory, dot Bean Factory interface. Okay, but Bean Factory interface is not capable, or it doesn't give you full support for the web application and Spring. So you have a sub interface. Which is the sub interface of a Bean Factory? Application context. So just a second. So here, when you say Bean Factory, What is it bean factory representing? A Spring container. And factory is what? A provider. So it is the Spring container who is going to provide you with ready-made Spring beans. So the name bean factory. Okay, so sub-interface is application context. Now, I'm not opening the diagrams, otherwise we take too much time in revision and then our actual contents suffer. So the application context, when I take you to web applications little later, we'll have a sub-interface web app context. So currently we are not there. So tell me, which is the implementation class we used to start the Spring container? Which was that implementation class? Class path XML application context, OSCS, ORG Spring Framework Context Support, and that. So when you say class path XML application context, what does it mean? What does it represent? It represents the application context is equal to Spring container bootstrapped from XML based instructions or annotation based instruction, X or A, XML based instruction. But where should be that XML file? Anywhere or in the runtime class path? Answer is runtime class path. And whatever you put under SRC main Java, I'm talking about main folders or SRC main resources, is automatically added under the runtime class path. So everything works out. Okay, so these were the previous steps. So when the Spring container starts, means whenever you create the instance of class path XML application context, that is where you are launching the container. The container will open the bean configuration file and start the bean lifecycle. So now we are at a starting point. So tell me, what is the first thing container will check? Start. The scope. What are the two possible values for a scope in core Java plus Spring environment? I mean, standalone applications plus this, singleton or a prototype. What is the default value of a scope? Singleton. So we are coming into under the singleton branch. I've drawn the flowchart fully. You can open that and answer or, connect to that. So in singleton, what is the next thing it will check? Suppose it is a singleton. What is the next flag? See this, guys. It is all here, singleton. Okay. Then it checks whether what is the value of lazy in it. Tell me, what is the default value of lazy in it? False. So which is the default combination we have? If you don't supply the scope or lazy in it, singleton and eager. Are you not getting me? So if it is a bean which is singleton and eager, when will container start the bean lifecycle? After the client makes a demand by saying context.getBean or right at the container start? Everyone with me? Right at the container startup is a very right answer. And so the lifecycle begins. It's same as your servlet. Only thing is web container was managing the servlet and here Spring container is managing the Spring bean. So phase is locate, load, instantiate. In servlet, it was located from web.inf classes folder. Here there is no such structure where we have to integrate it and all. So in short, it will load it using class.forName. And if you have not written any constructor args tag, which constructor it will try to call? Parameterize or default? Default constructor. Everyone clear? So are the dependencies injected using the default? Can the dependencies injected using the default constructor? Of course not. So after the default constructor, will it directly call the init style method or will it do something in between? It does something in between. What does it do? Setter based dependency injection. So guys, understand, all these constructor based DI, setter based DI is all optional. If you don't need the dependency, you'll not provide anything. So Spring container is extremely Spring Bean lifecycle is extremely flexible. So if there are any setters, if there is any setter based DI using property tag or using auto wiring or whatever, it will call the setters. And after that, if you have supplied the init method, then container will call the init method. So tell me, from init method, will you be able to access Your choices are constructor-based dependencies, setter-based dependencies, both or neither. Answer is both. From the default constructor, from the parameterized constructor, if you write ever a parameterized constructor using constructor-based DI, you can only avail constructor-based dependencies, because after the constructor, then the setters are called. And naturally, setter is an instance method. So how can container call a setter before calling the constructor? As simple as that. So let me, is init method a specific method such as public void init, or can it be any name? Answer is any name. Because why? Because your Spring Beans are not at all tightly coupled with Spring Framework. Recall. When we wrote a servlet, public class my servlet, it was extending from HTTP servlet, which came from generic servlet implementing a servlet. So we had to implement the lifecycle methods such as init, destroy, and do get, do start, etc. Right? But here, whatever beans we had written yesterday, the transport bean or your, what was it? ATM implementation bean did not extend, neither extended nor implemented any Spring API. So, of course, you can write any method name such as ABC or my init, your init, anything. So how does container know that this is the init method? Absolutely right. This is the attribute. Whose attribute it is? These are all the attributes of the bean tag. So you have to supply the init method name, and then container will call it. Next question. Will this init style method, will it be called for singletons, prototype, both or neither? Of course, you are right. Answer is both. Okay. So now see this. Your bean has been located, loaded, instantiated, dependency injected, and initialized. So this is what your container will do for your singleton and eager beans, completing init sequence, which is kind of very similar or very same as your servlet. Understood completely? Okay. So now tell me, the initialization sequence remains the same, but tell me now the other combination. It was singleton, but you said lazy init equal to true. So what is the combination I'm playing with? Singleton and lazy. First tell me, possible or not possible? Is this combination possible? 100% possible. It is prototype and eager which is not possible. Singleton means one instance. It doesn't care whether you want it right at the startup, make it eager, which is default. But if you say, I want it after the first demand, make it lazy. So 100% possible. So tell me, if you say singleton and lazy equal to true, when will container start? Okay, scratch that. How many instances of the bean container will create? Singleton and lazy. Singleton, the moment you see here, one. But when? At the container startup or on the first demand? On the first demand. Isn't it 100% same as servlet default? Because default value of load on startup in servlet is -1. So that is that equivalence, you should always look for. Okay, next combination. If I say prototype, so for prototype beans, is lazy init applicable or is it ignored? Applicable or ignored? It is not applicable, it is ignored. I showed you all these things you have seen yesterday with, small code samples. So if it is prototype, when will, okay, sorry, first question, how many prototype bean instances will be created by the container? Absolutely right. One per demand. So tell me, which is the method, what is the API, so that you can get the ready to use bean instance from the container? Give me the method name, get bean. What are the two arguments of this get bean method? What are the two arguments? One is the bean ID, which can be called as bean ID name, and the bean class. Exactly similar to your hibernate session.get, only the arguments are swapped. where you have a POJO class first and serializable ID. Here it is opposite. Go ahead. Next. So what will container give? So if it was a singleton and eagerly loaded, it will give you the existing copy. But for prototype bean, if you say context.getBean 10 times, will it return you the same shared instance or 10 different instances? Of course, 10 different instances. Everyone clear? So guys, you are 90% of the job of initialization done by the container. So what is the only thing you do after that? Invoke the business logic. Which was the business logic we had written yesterday? Tiny dummy. Today onwards we'll have better things. Yeah, deposit withdraw types. And then it was calling the dependency method. So then we'll talk about wiring in a minute. So then dependencies were wired as an injector and our business logic worked. Now come to the end of the life cycle. When will your, not servlet, when will your Spring Bean life cycle end? When you are shutting down the container, which is the interface. No, there's no destroy here, Shubham. So when does the container shut down? Whenever you say application context dot close. But you did not have to call the close method because it is auto closable. So we did it with a try with resources. So now tell me, when your context is getting closed, okay, Spring container will call. Now I can say destroy style method for singleton beans or prototype beans, or both or neither. Answer is only singleton. You got this? So these are this is your look at your life cycle, Spring Bean life cycle. And then we had entered Spring wiring. So you can open the diagram all the time. I mean, always. I will just take a revision. Okay. So tell me, there are two modes of wiring. Which are the two modes of wiring which your Spring offers? Explicit and implicit. Let's start with explicit. So tell me, okay, I'll tell you the way, you tell me the things. So let us talk about explicit setter-based dependency injection. Setter-based DI. Okay, DI is for dependency injection. So tell me, in the explicit setter-based DI mode, which of the following you have to write? So what is it called? Setter per dependency, property tags per dependency, both of above, none of above. Answer is both of above. You got this? So suppose your ATM bean has 5 dependencies. How many setters will you have to write in the class? 5 setters. And can you write any naming convention, or there is a strict Java bean style naming convention? Strict Java bean style naming convention. In short, suppose my property name is my transport. What should be the name of the method? What should be the name of the setter, please? Set my transport. So you have to follow the camel casing. Otherwise, you will see your container will not be able to call it. And you will start getting all nulls. So, and what should be the this thing? Access specifier public void, set my transport. And how many arguments can it have? One or multiple? One argument of the type transport. You got this? Property type basically. Okay. So now tell me, when you talk about property tag, this property tag is a standalone tag, or is it a child tag of a bean tag? Nested tag or standalone tag? Child tag, nested tag. Absolutely correct. Right. So what are the attributes of the property? One is name and value pair. One is name and ref. So if you want to inject the dependency bean references, what will you use? Name ref or name value? Of course, name and ref. It is a reference of dependency bean. But if you want to inject the value, I give you an example, cache value, suppose, or whatever value, go for name and value. So setter-based DI, what is the limitation? Limitation is not such a hard limitation, but yeah. So setter-based dependencies, are they available to the constructor? Yes or no? No. So if you want some mandatory dependencies to be made available right at the constructor time, what is it you'll choose? Setter-based DI or something else? Something else. Constructor-based DI. So tell me, if you want to add, if you want to support constructor-based dependency injection. What are the two things you have to do? Something you have to do in Java class and something you have to do in the XML file. So in Java class, parameterize constructor. And in XML file, yes, please, constructor argument tag. Child tag of a bean tag or a separate tag? Child tag. You know, we nest it within the bean tag, right? Next one. How many arguments you will pass to the parameterized constructor? One per don't say one per dependency. I'm saying arguments. And how many constructor arguments tag you will have to write? Same answer, one per dependency. Got it? So that's your constructor-based DI. So what will happen? The parameterized constructor will be called automatically by the Spring container, injecting all dependencies. Dependency injection is equal to making the dependencies available to dependent objects directly at runtime by whom? By dependent objects or by Spring container? By Spring container. So is it a traditional conventional programming where dependent objects are managing the dependency, or is it IOC? It is IOC. You understand why IOC? Now the control of dependencies is no longer with dependent objects. It is delegated to the container. So inversion of control. Got it all? Next, wiring. If you say there is a no constructor, I mean, if there's a default constructor or a private constructor, for example, and no setters, can you still do the DI, explicit DI? Answer is yes. How? Factory method based dependency. So tell me, when anyone asks you factory method, how do you write a factory method? Is it, yeah, you tell me. What is the signature of a factory method? Yeah, private constructor, that is fine, Kanal. I'm asking you this thing, yeah. Factory method. I'm not asking you about a constructor, guys. It should be, yes, Shubham is right. Public, static, void is wrong answer. How can it be void? What should be the return type? It's a factory, it's a provider, it is a supplier. Yes, it should be the instance of the bean. Guys, it is a bean factory. So it has to return, suppose it is, I told you to write the customer bean, it should return a customer. Yesterday we were writing ATM implementer bean. So we wrote it as public static, not transport. It is the ATM implementation, right? The dependent bean. And then the argument can be your dependencies. Return type Prashant was wrong. The argument is correct. Okay. So now tell me, will you pass any arguments to this factory method, or will it be argumentless? 100% argument parameterized. Otherwise, you can't do the DI. So how many arguments will you pass to this factory method? One is a wrong answer. Insufficient answer. Yes, Omkar is right. One per dependency. How can you say one? I'm just taking an example of one, but you can have 10 dependencies. So one per dependency. So okay, so let me ask you, who calls this factory method? P or SC, programmer or Spring container? Spring container. But once the control comes to your factory method, who will end up calling that private constructor or whatever constructor? Programmer. So in short, who has to create the dependent bean instance and pass the dependencies? You. That is why this approach is not so recommended. And it is not even supported in auto wiring. Yeah, exactly. Very, very well said. Partial IOC. Okay. So you're not getting a full inversion of control. You're compromising. Okay. So this was your explicit wiring. Then we went over to auto wiring. So when you say auto wiring is equal to implicit wiring, which part reduces? Java code or XML? XML reduces. So which is the new attribute you learned? The new attribute you learned was auto wire. So auto wire has 4 different values. No auto wiring means explicit wiring, which is what we just discussed. Or otherwise by name, by type and constructor. So only constructor is remaining. So yes. So when you say by name or by type, what is it? Setter based DI or constructor based DI? Setter based DI. The moment you say this, will you still need to write the setters in the Java class, I mean, in the dependent bean? Yes. So zero relief from there. But what is it you don't have to write in the XML file? Property tags. So property tags are gone reduced to zero. And if you say auto wiring by name, what will container try to match with what? I'll say try to match. Yes, I already got the answer. Property name derived via setter. Because container just has a name, setter, set, transport or whatever, must match with the bean ID. So now tell me, if you have not given any matching, what will happen? Spring container will detect this error and throw the exception, or business logic failure? Answer is business logic failure. No error is a wrong answer. See, so container will you got that? So business. So in short, when we enter this auto wire mode or whatever implicit wiring mode, are the dependencies treated as mandatory ones or optional ones? 100% optional. Got it? Now the next one, the one which you'll use all your time, I mean almost all the time, is by type. So when you say by type, what has to match with what? Yeah, so which data type? The data type of dependency which you have injected in setter must match with the dependency bean type. So container, I'll take an example. So our setter was set my transport, but my transport was a property name. So will it go matching my transport? Of course not. What was the data type of my transport? Transport. So what will container check? Will container check that is there a bean ID by the name my transport, or will it check is there a bean having the data type of transport? Of course, data type. And if you have created 3 different implementations, test transport, SOAP transport, HTTP transport, and if you give all of them, what will container do? Container will face the ambiguity and no unique bean definition exception would be raised. I'll just give you analogy. I like to give analogy so that you can connect. You remember in Hibernate, we have the query method, get single result. Everyone remembers the method? I'm switching the context. We've been doing it all the while. So if your JPQL produces more than one record, see, it's a bug, exactly, non-unique result. So that was a non-unique result exception. Here it is, no unique bean definition exception. Are you getting it? It's the concept is the same. It was expecting one and found multiple. That's the problem. That's the ambiguity. So this is your by name and by type. And the only thing which was remaining yesterday, I mean, I wanted to start something else, you know that. So the last one is auto wiring by constructor. So tell me, when you say auto wiring, we're going to start that in a minute and we'll finish it also in 5 minutes. So when I say auto wiring by constructor, is it a setter based DI or is it a constructor based DI? The moment you say constructor, everyone knows that. So what is it you'll have to provide? A default constructor or parameterized constructor? 100% parameterized. You got me? And what is it you don't have to provide any longer? Constructor argument tag in XML. You got that? So that part is clear. But now, is container going to match the name of the constructor argument to the bean ID, or is it going to match by the data type? Answer is data type. So I told you, it is nothing but auto wiring by type. Only instead of doing it on setters, it is going to do it on a constructor. Understood what I said? Okay, so let's get started. And with the first example of, let's make a copy of yesterday and continue in day 15 series. Oh, sorry, I should ask you. Is there any question so far? Is there anyone who has tried? I'm not talking about that lab assignment work, because then if we get into that, we will this thing. So that I will take it in maybe last half an hour or something. But the point is Spring related. If you are facing any issues or, not understanding anything, please speak up, ask questions. Okay, you keep your questions ready, and it is all clear. Very good, Shubham. I'm so happy to hear this. But anyway, like I said, today you're going to apply what you learned yesterday with annotations. So let's take you further. I'm just changing okay, it is Java perspective. Choose the Java perspective. You can later choose the Spring Explorer, Spring perspective also, and that will be like sufficient. Interesting. Very, very happy to hear this. Okay, so let me take just a second. I think 14.6. Let's take a look at it. I'm looking for last version. I think this was by type. Yes. So now what we do is copy D14.6 into 15.1. You can add a whatever extension, class or something. Copy the yesterday's project and modify form.xml suitably. Control F. 15.1. Replace all. Close. Save. Maven update. Tell me when you are done. Done? Very good. So now, under SRC main Java, don't even look at dependency. Open the dependent bean. And what is it we are attempting now? Auto wire equal to constructor means what? Constructor based DI, but using automatic wiring. So tell me, change or no change? Simple question, simple answer. Will you need to change it? Of course, change. Guys, constructor based DI. So how can a default constructor work? So how many dependencies are we talking about currently? Keeping it simple, one dependency. So here, add a parameterized constructor here, transport. And now you know what has to match with what. Here it is. Okay, anyway, let me write T1, 2, 3 and all. And here I'll say this. And assign. You can say this dot my transport or simply my transport is sufficient. Since there's no ambiguity in the names, this dot my transport is equal to T1, 2, 3. So at this point, directly in the constructor, will the dependencies be available? In short, what will be the output? Null or not null? Everyone knows it will be not null. So this is you can add a comment, constructor based dependency injection, constructor based DI. So we have got one dependency, so we added that. Is this any longer required? This was for setter based DI. Required in constructor based DI? Not really. So remove that. So these are the changes to be done in the code. Everyone done that? Just add a parameterized constructor, give some weird name T1, 2, 3 or something, and let that be. And then you have the rest of the code is the same. Done. Can we go to the XML file? Bean configuration XML. Okay. So open bean configuration XML piece in SRC main resources, which is under the runtime class path, and tell me what does that change? Which line will change? The auto wiring will change, and that is nothing but your constructor. So you can read the pop-up help. The constructor is analogous. I'll just read it, make it read this thing for you. So constructor analogous to by type, but for constructor arguments. So it is same purpose, and it is. So let me just look at it. I don't know which copy you have copied, but which copy you have made. So here, if I give only one, what will happen? So if this is the configuration, so what is it I have got? I have got only one available dependency. So your choices are, yes, earlier answer is correct. Your choices are what will happen to that. Spring container throws the exception. Second choice, business logic failure, something like null pointer. Third choice, No error, nothing, and things work okay, all okay. Pick up the option. Option 3 is the right one. Why? Because now what will happen? So here, think like a container. The moment container sees auto var equal to constructor, what it will start doing? It will open the parameterized constructor. Okay. And here, is it going to start, what is it called? Matching by transport or T123 by name or by type? By type. So which is the type here? Transport. So now it starts hunting. Hunting means searching. Is there any bean which has implemented transport interface, or I can say simply which is of the type transport? So how many candidates, how many beans it will find? Exactly one. So finds a match, goes ahead with dependency injection. Confirm. So go to the tester, test Spring, run this, and let's see whatever we said is working or not. So check this out. It is creating. See guys, you are not doing anything in the sense, of course you'll say I'm writing Bean, I'm writing XML, all that will reduce. So the point is, you have not done any explicit wiring, you have not used any constructor argument, etc. tags. So you just said auto var equal to constructor. So before it can call the ATM implementation constructor, before the dependent object can be created, container is creating the dependency. All of you can see that. And then it is taking that dependency and injecting it, making it available in the constructor. So from the constructor itself, dependency is available, and it will say it will be available all beans, right? Container starts somewhere. This is your business logic using the transport layer, informing the bank using the transport layer. This is still a singleton, so both references, multiple demands will give you the same copy, and destroy method gets called at the end of the singleton bean lifecycle. Is everyone clear with the constructor auto var equal to constructor option? Are you getting the same results, guys? And of course, the moment you make a mistake, as in multiple, so just uncomment. Just make multiple beans available. So now container is in a fix, as in ambiguity. It doesn't know whether to inject this HTTP transport or SOAP transport. So save and run this. Of course, container will throw you an exception. And you all know the name of the exception is no. See, the outer exception, outer means surface level, is unsatisfied dependency. But guys, don't be satisfied with the surface level exception. Always look for root cause, as in caused by, because caused by will tell you the real story or the real problem. So the caused by is here. No unique bean definition. And you know this whole stuff. It was looking for a single matching bean, but how many matches it found? 2 matches it found, causing classic ambiguity. Is everyone clear? We saw this already. Exactly the same thing I showed you in auto varying by type. Same thing with constructor. Getting the same things? So before I share my code anytime, I'm just, of course, commenting this. So this completes your Spring wiring in the explicit and the implicit mode. So let me ask you a question, and then I'll take you to the next topic. So far, okay, let me open that important diagram. Wait a second, because that diagram has to be in front of you all the time. Only 12 I gave you this, right? Spring help. And yeah, the diagrams, this diagram I'm talking about. So let me ask you a simple question. So we are in core Java. We will soon shift to web applications and all that. So what are the 2 inputs we have supplied? Dependents and dependency beans, which is your transport and ATM implementer. And till now, how we have supplied this metadata information? Using XML Using annotations or something called a Java configuration classes? Which is the approach used so far? 100% XML approach. And I'm telling you guys, the XML is the best way to understand the internals. But now it has its own disadvantages. So let me ask you a simple question. Imagine that there are, suppose, I'll just take some numbers, 10 dependent beans and 15 dependencies, just a number. I just took a number. Suppose I have got in your application, large application, 10 dependent and their dependencies, such as 15 plus 10, 25 total beans. So the question being asked is, if you go for full XML configuration approach, how many bean tags you will have to add? 1 or 25? Everyone understands it? And the code, not code, the XML configuration gets so bloated, so thick. That is where we come to the middle approach. See, I'm going to show you 3 approaches. So the first one was pure XML approach. This is called as a classic or legacy approach. In industry, nobody uses classic XML approach. So now I'm taking you to the second step, which is that second step, you know, it is called as a hybrid approach. So what is that hybrid approach? There will be still little bit, much lesser. You'll see how less, much lesser XML, and majority will be done with annotations. Okay, exactly. Hybrid is, you know, hybrid cars and all that. Anyway, so XML plus annotation. And once you understand all these annotations, when I take you to Spring Boot, tomorrow or day after, I hope to take it tomorrow, second half, let's say whenever. So whenever I take you to Spring Boot doesn't use a single XML file other than pom.xml, and that also gets generated. But will it use any configuration file, Spring Boot framework? Nothing. So then I'll show you something called as, it uses the full Java configuration classes, zero XML approach, full annotation. So we are going there gradually. So today, no Spring Boot, obviously. Today, we are focusing on second approach, which is a hybrid approach. So just a second. I'm just checking. Yeah, I'll send you the sequence, but I'm not at all sure that how much of it we are going to cover in the limited time today. I'm just sending you this so that, you know, you can open it and you can start relating to it basically. Wait a second. I'm just going to make a comparison between XML and annotation. So this is the sequence. I've sent you sequence, which, you know, I'll keep updating all the time. So once you download it, in the meantime, I'll show you from here. You will see, you can look for a word hybrid approach. You got the sequence, guys? Okay, so please open it and look for hybrid approach, where what you have total reduction in XML. So you'll say, I had got a reduced XML in the auto wiring. That's not it. You'll see the whole bean tag will disappear. Okay, you will see reduction in Java code also. You remember, till today, till now, we still have to write setters per dependency or that parameterized constructor. All of that will be gone and it will be replaced by majority annotations. Okay, so I'm getting you started. So that is why I shared this with you. So we are going to discuss a step and we are going to continue. So before I start discussing the steps, first make a copy. I'll tell you what to copy. We'll go for the first one, which we did, and that itself will convert it into a hybrid approach. I'll just tell you, wait a second. Close all, Control Shift W. And the first project of yesterday's Spring was day 14 Spring Java SE. Simple, singleton eager bean, just to focus and setter-based dependency injection in an explicit manner. So make a copy of that. I'll say again, day 14 Spring Java SE, the first one which we created together, and copy it into day 15.2. With Spring MVC, everything we are going to write from scratch. So don't worry about that because that's a project technology kind. And you know all this, edit form.xml and make the suitable changes. A rename basically. Replace all, close, and Maven update. Close update. Done. Very good. So now here, when you go from what is it called? Uh, hybrid approach. Let me show you. There are steps written, but I just want to give you the impact. So please open src main resources bean configuration file. So how many bean tags are there currently? There are 3 dependencies, 1 dependent, 3 plus 1, 4. So remove all of them. This is what I mean by the reduced XML. Okay, so you're not going to, even there are 20 beans. How many bean tags would be there in the bean configuration file? 0. Are you getting this? So this is your major reduction of XML. Okay, so done the first step. I am going to take this in a hybrid. Okay, hybrid manner means code along manner, concept, theory, and a lab together that way. So coming back to the point. Now read the step. I'll explain, and we will do that. So now we want to add the annotation support. Okay, so if you want to enable the annotation support, the only namespace, the only XSD file, XML schema file, which we had selected. You remember we selected a checkbox, was a beans namespace. So you have to add the additional context namespace to get that, to get all those context tags. So see what I'm doing. Pay attention here. Can you see where my cursor is? At the bottom of the page. Can you see the tabs such as source, namespaces, overview, etc.? Respond, please. Okay, so click on the namespaces. Tell me, which is the only namespace we have enabled so far? Beans. So now, can you see below cache, there is a context namespace. So select context namespace. It will ask you editing that, all that, say okay to that. We want it. So which are the 2 checkboxes selected so far? Later we will add MVC, P, transaction, so many. But now only beans and the context. Got it? Switch back to source view. And can you see XML namespace context also added? Everyone with me? Managing. Okay. Now, so this is the first step. Now the next one. Here, first tag I'm explaining. Before I start explanation, let me tell you something which will make you happy. Are you expected to remember these tags? Are people going to ask you that context colon, what are tags? People, answer is no, thankfully. But do you need to understand these tags? Suppose they give you some XML file and ask you what is the meaning. That answer is yes. Okay. So how to tell Spring Container that I want to enable the class internal. Class internal means what? We have a bean class and you are going to see so many annotations which we are going to add inside the class. Some example is auto-wired, post-construct, pre-destroy, request mapping, get mapping, post mapping, etc. So to enable the internal class and internal annotation, let us add the tag. You don't have to copy paste. I'm telling you, the STS is so easy. It is full of intelligence. So which is the namespace you are choosing? Context. The first one itself is context colon annotation config. There is no child tag, so close it. And like I always say to all my freshers, if you don't understand a letter of what I'm saying, just take the cursor, at least this much everyone can do, and read. Activates various annotations to be detected in the bean classes, and they have given a long list. Okay, so let's add just a comment so that you know anytime you are revising, you know what that tag is. To enable, activate, whatever you say, to enable the annotations within Spring Bean class. And example, you're going to see plenty of examples. So don't write examples here. Everyone done that? I've given you in the README also. And anyway, you don't even require it. It is all in the control space. All right. Next one. Now, listen to the next question, please. Earlier means just a minute ago, we had a huge, we had a XML file and we were writing the bean tag. So which was the bean attribute? ID and class. And that class was fully qualified class name such as dependent dot class name. In short, your container was knowing exactly which packages to scan to find the Spring Beans. But the moment your your bean tag is gone, can container automatically know which packages to scan for Spring Beans? Can it understand automatically? Answer is no. You have to give the instruction. So read the next tag, understand it, and mark it as a very, very important one. Just read this. I'll explain. So what is the name of the tag? Context colon component scan. So you'll say which component you are talking about. Spring Bean is nothing but a component managed by the container. Okay, so that is all Spring Beans are components. And if you remember yesterday, I had shown you the Java JSP Java Bean versus what? Our Spring layers. So there will be a controller bean, there will be service beans, there will be repository beans, etc. I mean, down layer beans, etc. So how to tell your container that this is the base package, this is the package under which my beans are? Very easy. Context colon component scan. And like a blindfolded person, container, is it going to look everywhere, or is it going to look under these base packages? Answer is only under the base package. Okay, and later you will see, you of course this is just one side of story, XML tag, but the other side of story is how do you tell container whatever class you have written. For example, what is that, transport, or your ATM implementation is a bean. You will have so many annotations which are called as stereotype annotations little later. Let us figure out the XML file first. So now add the comment to tell Spring container about the location of the base package. To specify the location of the base package of Spring Beans. Later, see, today I have two packages. One is dependent, one is dependency. But later we will keep it under the common base package. All those tips I'll share later. And then you have just say context, and you can choose the second one and read. There's so much of interesting, I mean, so much of descriptive help and all. Scans the class path for annotated components that will be automatically registered, recognized as Spring Beans. And these are all the annotations which it will understand. Okay, so context colon component scan. Again, you don't require any child tag here, so close the tag. And here, now I want the container to scan which two packages? One is dependent, one is dependency. So you can add dependency and dependent. Oh, it removes this. So something you'll have to type. Don't make the spelling mistake. I said when I auto-completed it, the first one vanished. So who is going to read this instruction? Spring container. When? At the Spring container starting time. How do you start a Spring container in a desktop-based standalone application? By creating the instance of class path XML application context. And once the container reaches this line, what it will start doing? It will open from the runtime class path dependent package and start checking, are there any Spring Beans, and start managing their life cycle. And then it will proceed to dependency and continue with the same. Understanding so far? Completely clear about it? Okay. So these are the only two lines currently will require. Okay, now proceed to really interesting stuff. So there are, okay, let me ask you a question. Analogy always. How did we tell Hibernate framework, or I can say JPA framework, JPA implementer, that whatever follows has a standalone existence? Configure it with a separate table and primary key and all that, which is that class level annotation we gave to the Hibernate Pojo. Guys, map superclass is wrong. Entity, @entity. How did we tell the container that whatever follows, the contents have to be embedded in the owning entity, which was that class level annotation @embeddable? How did you tell in the first week of our advanced Java that whatever follows is a servlet to the servlet container? Which annotation? How do you tell web container, web servlet exactly? Of course, there is an equivalent XML. I'm not talking in XML. How did you tell that whatever follows is a listener, @web listener, etc.? Okay, so now come to the Spring, our final project technology. So here, how do you tell container that whatever follows is a Spring Bean whose life cycle has to be managed by the container? So answer is using some stereotype annotations. So what is that meaning of stereotype annotation? There's no meaning at all. You will see when we use it, they belong to the package OS org Spring Framework stereotype. That's why they are called as stereotype annotation. There are more configuration and all that. So let's come to the point. So if you just want to tell the container whatever follows is an ordinary Spring Bean and doesn't have any request handling or business logic or DAO layer or whatever, what is the base? What is the basic annotation is @component. The moment you annotate the class, they are all class level. I've written class level annotations. So the moment you have @component, who will start managing the life cycle? A Spring container, web container, Hibernate, or programmer Spring container. Now, these are the specialized types, subtypes. Okay. Soon we are going to enter WebMVC scenario. So in WebMVC scenario, the topmost layer is going to be the controller C, MVC C controller, and the job will be request handling. So how do you tell the container? Whatever follows is your request handler. We will add the @controller annotation. Controller will be calling the business logic method well separated, nicely separated into a business logic layer, which is annotated with service. But service layer will have a pure business logic like your Java Bean, and the data access logic will be nicely separated again, and that is your @repository annotation. So for the next 2 days at least, I'm going to make you comfortable in a MVC based web application. And when I see that, okay, you have practiced enough, we have solved a case study or whatever, something, then our ultimate aim is developing a full stack application. You know, React, you already are experts. I'll just take care of your backend. So here, then we will convert. Okay, you'll see it is so powerful, so easy. Simply @controller annotation will be replaced by REST controller annotation. And that will act as a resting endpoint or RESTful endpoint. So that will be basically API provider. And then you can make a through Axios, or I'll be showing you through Postman. One example, I'll show you full stack. But the point is then we can test this whole of entire backend using Postman and then keep it ready. So the point is these are the annotations. So now let me take you deeper. So initially, I'm going to just start with component because today, I mean, immediately I don't have any MVC. I don't have any layer. So when you say add component, what is it equivalent to in our XML world? It is nothing but your bean tag with bean ID bean class. So like how whenever container came across this bean tag, it was starting a life cycle. Now it is taking the instructions from annotation. But when you go from XML to annotation, will there be any change in the life cycle or no change in the life cycle? Change or no change? The beans life cycle, which you have studied yesterday, change or no change? Absolutely no change, zero changes. Okay, so example makes it clearer. So read this example. Suppose, okay, I'll highlight this one. Read it carefully. Don't read the or of it. So everyone knows. Suppose I wrote bean ID ABC classes thus. How do you say the same thing in annotation world? I mean, in the annotation manner. Here is your my bean class, of course, with the package. And here you add component annotation. And what is this? Nothing but, what is that ABC? A bean ID, component ID. Everyone clear? So that way, this is how I'm going to explain. This is what we did in XML. This is what is the corresponding annotation. Now look at something else. Okay, let us say this. Suppose you did not give any ID. Okay, you did not forget. You don't want to give an ID. So this ID was programmer supplied, customized. Okay, here I'm not supplying it. Who will generate it for us? Who will derive it for a Spring container? So here, when you don't supply ID, it has got a strict naming convention. So it checks what is the name of the class? MyBean. What will be that derived generated ID for that? MyBean with lowercase first letter. Are you understanding? This is why I told you long back, please follow camel casing correctly, because this all becomes so important. Otherwise, you will start getting bean not found exception. Okay. So if you don't supply any ID, what will be the derived bean ID? The name of the class, it will be the same as name of the class with the lowercase first letter. Are we clear so far? Is that component, how it maps to bean ID is clear? Okay, go further. This I will start later. So controller repository service with our MVC later. Now tell me, how did we mention the scope? We had a bean tag attribute scope. So what is it correspondingly here? Add scope. Are you understanding the mapping? In XML, we had attribute name scope. Here it is a class level annotation. I've written the whole line. In XML, scope attribute, here annotation. So till the time I don't take you to MVC or web application, what are the two applicable values? Singleton or prototype. Which is the default one? S or P? You know that, singleton. Next one. What was that attribute which is applicable to singleton? Lazy init. What is the default value? False. What is corresponding annotation we have here? @lazy. Are you understanding it? The bean tag replaced by component, scope attribute with @scope, and lazy init by @lazy. 100% clear so far? We're going to apply it in a couple of minutes. I'm just explaining the point. Now, you remember, you can write, or rather we could write init and our own custom init and custom destroy method, using which two attributes? Init method, destroy method. But we had to write a method for that. So now I'm telling you, not a class level. Now we are entering inside the class, a method level annotation. We had that @override and all in core Java. So what is the annotation? To tell the Spring container, whatever follows is the init method @post construct. See the word post construct. Construct means constructor. So after the constructor, dependency injection, and after that, this init method will be called. And which is the method? Container will call for singleton before what? Garbage collection is the destroy method, destroy style method. And how do you annotate it? With pre-destroy. So tell me, add component, add scope, add lazy, and these two annotations. Clear? Are you understanding? See guys, that is why I started you on XML. Okay, two reasons. Of course, one is it is in your content syllabus, and the other thing is clarity. Once you see in XML, corresponding annotation understanding becomes so easy. Okay, next one. So required one. Let me ask you a question before I explain this. When we shifted from explicit to implicit, that is auto wiring. In auto wiring, how was your container treating the dependencies? Mandatory or optional? Answer is optional. Everyone understands that? Means what? In case container did not find the match by name or by type or whatever, was container throwing any exception? Answer is no. Container was saying, okay, I did not find the match. It will still go ahead. Of course, you will get an exception in a business logic, but not by container. So in annotation world, there is a special annotation @required. When you say @required, it's a Boolean one. What is the default value? True. Where can you add this annotation? If you are using setter based DI, above a setter method. If you are using constructor based DI, above a constructor. And I'm going to show you field level dependency injection. So above field also it can come. And what is it telling the container? If you say only @required, and if container doesn't find the dependency, tell me what will happen. First option, Spring container throws the exception. Second one, business logic failure. Third one, all okay. Obvious answer. Answer is for business logic failure. Guys, you're not reading it. I made the dependency required. Default is true. So who will detect this problem? This becomes a mandatory dependency. Spring container itself throws the exception, unsatisfied dependency exception. You got it? But if you say, I want to treat this dependency as a optional one, so what will you say? Required and value is false. Tell me again, because you gave me wrong answer. If you say only @required, what is the dependency? Mandatory or optional? Mandatory. In case container doesn't find it, will container start or that itself will throw the exception? Which exception? Unsatisfied dependency or no such being found exception. So that is the one. Now comes the most important. So keep a mental note of reading it twice or 10 times or whatever. The major one, the game changer kind of a thing. So here, listen to the learning curve we started. We started with explicit wiring, correct? Where we had to write a lot of XML, lot of Java code. Then I showed you auto wiring in XML. But that still forced us, okay, XML configuration reduced, but still the Java code did not reduce. So now I'm taking you to an annotation which we will use regularly. There is another way also, but let me not confuse. @AutoWired is a major annotation, which is using which is nothing but automatic wiring by type. So using which your XML is gone already, bean tags are gone, but your Java code also reduces. So pay special attention to it. So first question, this @AutoWired annotation, where it can come. So if you are fond of writing lot of Java code, you can still write a setter method and above that it can come. If you are using constructor based DI, yes, it can come above the parameterized constructor. But guys, Spring tells you why slog? Why give me many instructions when I can understand with few? So can I get rid of all of this extra code? Answer is yes. And you just add a dependency as a field. Field means data member. I've given an example in a minute. In a minute, I'll explain. So you can directly, so no setter per dependency, no parameterized constructor. Okay, so you directly declare a field and annotate it with @AutoWire. So when you use only @AutoWire, what is it? Is it automatic wiring by name or is it automatic wiring by type? Answer is, it is automatic wiring by type. Everyone remembers by type. I told you it is an important one. So container will try to match it with the data type. So, and I'm telling you the field level annotation. I'm taking the same example as I showed you. In ATM implementation bean, which is a dependent bean, what will come? No setters, no parameterized constructor. You simply add @AutoWire and just what? Declare the data member. So what will you call this? Field level dependency injection, or I mean, okay, sorry. Is it a field level annotation, class level annotation, or method level? Field level annotation. And another beauty is here, when you say AutoWire, there is an attribute here, required. And the default value of that required is true. So let me ask you a simple question. When you write this, we are going to test all this in 2 minutes. When we write this, it is automatic wiring by type. And if container does not find anything, any matches, is it going to continue starting or is it going to throw the exception? 100% it is going to throw the exception. So read it in detail. Will you require any parameterized constructor? No. See the code reduction. Will you need to add any setter? No. Will you need to write any XML tags in the, bean tags in the XML file? No. So only these 2 lines. Are you getting the amount of code reduction? So what will Spring Container do? It is going to check for any bean of the transport by type because it is auto wiring by type and make it available. So container starts hunting. The moment it finds a bean which is of the type transport, which has implemented transport interface, it will inject it. So if I talk in code, suppose it comes across HTTP transport. So what will your container do for you? Private transport, my transport is equal to, it creates that HTTP bean and passes it here. But now, what if? I mean, cases. What will happen types? If Spring Container comes across multiple matches, will it survive? Will it continue? You have seen the answer. Classic ambiguity. And which exception it will throw? No unique bean definition exception. Of course, the superficial exception is unsatisfied dependency. And if the container doesn't find even a single match, you remember yesterday it was just keeping silent and we were getting a null pointer in business logic failure. Here it doesn't stay silent. Why doesn't it stay silent? Because by default, AutoWire's required attribute is true. So it will definitely throw you unsatisfied dependency exception. Having the root cause, no bean definition found exception. You are going to see all of this in a couple of minutes. So I'll stay quiet for a minute. You read this and tell me, are you clear? We're going to use it. After example, it will be clearer. Understood this? So when you use @AutoWire, is it is the auto wiring by name, by type, or constructor? Answer is by type. Okay, next one. But in my case, in our case, you will get 3 transport layers. So of course, container will throw you no unique bean definition. So is there any way I can change it to by name? Answer is very much yes. So first annotation remains the same. Which one? @AutoWire. But additionally, which is the extra annotation we are adding here? @ qualifier. And what is the value of the qualifier you are injecting? The bean ID. You remember we have that add component in the codes, we have bean ID. So that is what we are injecting. And this is not, and of course you have a property. So this is nothing but auto varying by name. Spring container will search for a bean with the ID of test. Are you getting it? So there are two possibilities again. Container finds a match, container doesn't find a match. So now see the guys, it is ID. So it is a unique ID. So if the match is found, one single match is found, no exception. Field level dependency injection works fine. But in case match is not found, because the default value of required is true, will container continue or will container throw the exception? Of course, Spring container throws the exception. The outer level being unsatisfied dependency exception. But if you look for root cause caused by, it will tell you no bean definition found exception. I hope you are not confusing. No unique bean definition means multiple matches, ambiguity. No bean definition found means not even a single match. So are we clear here? How to replace by type by name? Just add an additional annotation at the rate qualifier and you are done. So you are replacing the matching by type to matching by name. Are we getting it? We'll, like I said, we'll use it. And there is this is what I'm saying is an exam objective. It's this combo of at qualifier, at auto-var plus at qualifier can be replaced by one J2E annotation. There's a package called as, this is not a Spring annotation. So generally, I'll not advise this. We are into Spring framework, so let's use as many as Spring annotations. So there is post construct pre-destroy coming from Java X annotation, but all others are from Spring framework. Coming back to the point, you can directly add at resource, which is a combination of these two, and supply the name as the dependency bean ID. It is nothing but auto varying by name again. But instead of that, I will use largely, or we will use largely, the Spring supplied annotations. So guys, keep this discussion in front of you. That is why I shared the sequence. And now let us apply these annotations. So open the code. I hope you remember what are the steps we have taken so far. We removed all the bean tags, no longer necessary. We enabled the context namespace. So you can start adding the context related tags. Only two tags I have shown you, context : annotation config and component scan, and the purpose is also clear. So now you can say close all. And let us start configuring the dependencies first. Actually, it is nothing like first and last, but generally the followed pattern. Open the dependency package and start with interface. Is this a Spring bean or not a Spring bean? Tell me. Is the transport interface Spring bean or not a Spring bean? Quick question, quick answer. It is not a Spring bean. This is not a class. This is just an interface, just a specification. So no annotations we are adding here. So next one. So start with the test layer. So if you write only this much and there is no bean tag, can container identify this as a Spring bean? Answer is no. So which is the class level annotation you'll have to add? See, we are not into controllers and the service and repos and all. So which is the mandatory annotation? At the rate component. And whenever you say component, OS is ORG Spring Framework, and the name of the package itself is stereotype. So that is why they are called as stereotype annotations. But if I do only this much, can you tell me what will be that generated derived bean ID? If I don't specify any bean ID, what will be the Spring container generated? Exactly, test transport. So if you want it, if you're happy with that, fine. Otherwise, you can supply your own bean. Your own ID. What is it equivalent to in our XML world? Bean ID equal to test and class equal to dependency dot test transport. Understood this? So let us configure it as singleton and eager. So tell me, if I want to configure it as singleton and eager, do you have to add any at scope annotation? No, because default scope is what? Singleton. Do you have to add any at lazy annotation? No, again, because the default value of lazy in it is lazy is false. So leave it as this. Done configuring. Just I added one annotation component with a qualifier of test. Go to the next one. I'll tell you what I want. You'll give me that. So I want this as singleton. Mute yourself, please. And lazy. Give me the code. Not code. Give me the annotations. I mean, start writing. I want it as singleton but lazy. So whenever there is a first demand, let container not be hyper about it. Let it wait for the first demand. Start. Which is the basic annotation I'll require. Compulsory annotation is add component. Exactly, you're right. Add scope is not required because I still want it as this thing, singleton. So why you require scope? You don't require scope. Okay. Let's not give the this thing. What is it called? Qualifier. Let it be a derived one. HTTP transport with lowercase h and at lazy. And when you say at lazy, you can supply the value, see the value, and yeah, you can say directly true or value equal to true. Either one, anyone will do this. You don't have to supply the value. You can reduce it this way also because the default attribute name itself is value. So everyone clear? Singleton and lazy. And what will be the generated, or you can say they call it as derived bean ID. Everyone knows the answer. HTTP transport. All these things you require a lot every time. So I'm just taking enough time on that. This is all foundation still. No application. So we are good here. And last one I want it as a prototype. So give me a prototype bean. The moment I say prototype, correct? If I say prototype, there's no question of this thing. What is it called? Lazy or this. The prototype beans are always created lazily, one per demand. So which annotations will you add now? Yes, add component and add scope. Everyone gets it right. So here you are just reducing. I'm just telling you every concept you know now. I'm just showing you. Suppose I might want to give a so here whatever. And if you see that this, the default attribute is value itself. So here I can say. So what is the combination we are having here? With prototype, there is no question of lazy eager. Yes, the only thing is it's a string value, so give it in the quotes, the prototype. So who will manage the life cycle? Spring container. But when it will start the life cycle? After you make a demand. And how many bean instances would be there? One per every demand. So the life cycle understanding stays the same. Done configuring all the dependencies. I just wanted to show you various things, so I just gave you that. Okay. Now the interesting thing will be always mute all, please. This thing. The interesting thing will be always configuring the dependent bean. So open your dependent bean. Will have not muted. Okay. So here, open the ATM implementation, and I'll tell you something. You can say Control Shift O. I'll tell you something here. Don't start. I want to ask you a question. I want to see your understanding. So you don't require that test ATM. Just say Spring. And here, can you tell me which is the bean ID we are already using? Can you tell me the dependent bean ID which we are using in the tester? It's an easy question. Everyone should be able to answer, not just 1 or 2, 10 answers, my ATM. So we are doing the reverse engineering. Either you change it here, but why make changes when we have yet a bean to configure? So you know what I mean. So tell me, which is the annotation? Okay, I did not tell you. Let this be. The major, you are going to have it as singleton and eager, S and E, singleton and eager. Okay, so start coding. start, not coding, sorry, annotating component. And what will be, do I require a qualifier or no qualifier is required? Here, of course, you require a qualifier, bean ID. Otherwise, what will be the generated one? ATM IMPL with A lowercase, which we, then again, I'll have to touch my tester, which I don't want to. It is a singleton, so default scope is singleton. Default loading policy is eager, so not required. Got me so far? Understood me so far? Okay, now the next one. So let's do this. So here, just go down, and this was a required part for setter-based dependency injection. So are we going to continue with this, or are we going to replace it by the field level dependency injection? Answer is field level. So do you require it, or this is also gone? Answer is this is also gone. See guys, I'm after the code reduction, not after increasing the code, right? So get rid of this. And will you need any parameterized constructor, or default constructor is sufficient? Of course, default is sufficient. You'll say why you are keeping it. Answer is only to trace the life cycle. Otherwise, I can get rid of it anytime. But if I do only this much, what will happen? Spring container will start, but will your business logic work, or will it fail? Of course, it will fail. Why? Or you will have a null dependencies injected. So now tell me the major annotation you are going to add. What is the annotation we want to add for automatic wiring? At auto wired. Field level, it can be applied at field level, constructor level, setter level. I don't want it, want to write extra code. So here you will have @auto wired. Okay, sorry. You can later. It's such a well-written documentation. Makes a constructor or a field or a setter method, or later something called as configuration method. Later, that is, I mean configuration classes, as to be auto-wired by Spring's DI facility, dependency injection. So at auto-wired. And when I say at auto-wired, tell me, what does it imply in our XML world? It is corresponding to auto-wire attribute with which value? By type or by name? It is by type. So at this point, is container going to match by data type of the dependency, or by the by some bean ID? Type or name? Of course, by type. Everyone understands it. Now tell me, when we write this, and then you run the code, when you run the tester, which of the following will happen? Spring container cannot start because it throws the exception. Business logic failure, or all okay? Everyone knows that. Of course, no unique bean definition exception. So we'll just confirm whatever we understood in XML, is it same as annotation? 100% same. Next one. So now, I don't have any bean tag where we used to add that init hyphen method. So what is the corresponding annotation to tell the container that this is my init method? Which is the annotation? Post construct, very right. So here, add. This is not coming from your Spring framework. It is a JavaX annotation. Just take the cursor here and you'll see JavaX.annotation. Only these two I'm using because there is no corresponding one here in Spring. And the one for corresponding to destroy is pre-destroy. So these were the method level annotations. This is signifying the init method to be called after the dependency injection. This is applicable only to singleton beans just before the garbage collection. Are you done? So just check it. It is a very easy transition. If you have understood it, things are easy. If you don't understand, then they are difficult. So add component, singleton and eager, no more things. This is the major one. So at auto wired with the required attribute equal to true, making the dependency mandatory. And here, I'll remove this, otherwise you'll get confused. And this is your field level DI. Everyone finished with the annotations? Are we ready to run now? So go to your tester. Where is that tester? Yeah, test Spring, and run it. and observe the exception. Just observe and tell me, what is it you got? Tell me, what are we getting? Has the Spring container started? No. Observe. You're okay. Let me say this. How did your Spring container know that it has to configure the ATM implementation bean? How did it reach here? Not really. That is a wrong answer, Prashant. I'll make my question clearer. Sometimes, most of the times, my questions are not clear. I said, how did it start configuring ATM implementation? So let me ask you properly. At which line it will start configuring the my ATM bean or whatever? Give me the line numbers, please. Let's see the line number. 17. Wrong answer. Guys, you've forgotten. The moment you start the Spring container, here, it will open your bean configuration XML file. And once it opens, don't forget the flow. Once it opens, this is for enabling the internal annotations. And this is where container is informed that, okay, my beans are under the package dependent. So it opens the dependent package. And this is an interface, so ignores it. And here, thanks to this add component annotation, it starts managing the life cycle. Understood what I said? Completely. So it is not after the demand. The moment your container is started, Spring container boots up, it will start the whole sequence. So the correct answer here is line number 10, which again goes, this is a hybrid approach. Very little XML, largely annotations. So it will open this, it will come to the base package, and from there it will understand that, okay, this is what I have to scan for the annotated components. So that itself, now look at the whatever exception that you know. Unsatisfied dependency exception doesn't tell you a word. So look for caused by, and you know this. Yesterday we did this. No unique bean definition. It says same thing. Wanted 1, found 3, and the story over. Are you getting this? Now, so I want to like, okay, so if I want to give exactly 1, then I have to comment all that add component. But I don't want that. I have a question for you. Yes. So can I replace by type to by name? Answer is yes. How do you do this? Everyone knows it. So just add an additional one. This is, we are still playing with the basic Spring thing. We have not yet started the real exercise. Let me tell you. So how do you change it from by type to by name? So this was by type. Add the additional qualifier. So you have a qualifier here, OS bean factory annotation. You know, you can add it wherever you want. And here you supply. Suppose I want to inject. Let's inject. Okay, here, see this. I want to inject the HTTP transport. But this doesn't have a bean ID. I mean, our supplied bean ID. So it is a derived bean ID with the name of here. So now tell me, when you add this additional annotation add qualifier, what is it? Is it auto wire still by name, or is it auto wire by, by type or by name? Of course, it is by name. The whole combination works as this. Means what? Will container start matching it by the transport? Answer is no. By my transport? Answer is no. It will search, is there a bean with a qualifying ID of HTTP transport? If it doesn't find, of course, the Spring container throws the exception, because this is a mandatory requirement, mandatory dependency. But it is going to find it. We have matched it correctly, and we'll see whether it works. So please run this. Has everyone added the add qualifier with proper spelling and all that? Okay. So run this now and check. Is the dependency injection and your business logic all working? Has to work. So it started by creating the dependent bean, because in my base package I said dependent comma dependency. You're going to swap it and you're going to see the changes soon. Then it has created the dependency. It has Okay, it has created the dependency, and it is not a setter based yet, it is a field level dependency injection. So the moment the constructor instance is created, the instance fields are instance members are available, your dependencies are all set in. Let me say this slowly and clearly. The field level dependencies, are they available to default constructor? Answer is in front of you. Field level dependencies, are they available to the default constructor? Answer is no. Why? No rocket science. Fields, the transport field was an instance variable. And will your JVM, can JVM allocate the memory to the instance variable before calling the instance, before calling the constructor? Of course not. So during the instantiation, field level dependencies are all null, not injected yet. But from that point, I mean, after the instance is created, they are available. Did we have to write any setter or any parameterized constructor? None of above. Okay, so this is your dependency getting created. This is your init method. Thanks to that add post construct. And why test transport bean was created? Anyone wants to answer? Why this test transport was also created? Simple question, simple answer. Yeah, okay. The two answers, singleton and eager. I said no scope, no lazy policy. So the default scope was singleton, and default loading policy of singleton is eager. Okay, so singleton and eager. Container starts. How many bean instances are there in the Java heap? One is that ATM implementation. Other one is HTTP transport, field level DI, and the third one is test layer. Getting it? Okay, 3 is the correct answer. Now this is your business logic using HTTP. And because your, what was it? ATM implementation bean was the singleton and eager, singleton. All the references refer to this. And here, the dependency and the destroy method is also got. Is the output clear? Fully? Okay. Now, let's do something. Only unless until you play with it, how you're going to understand it. So, change this qualifier to 1, 2, 3. You're not allowed to run it. When I say not allowed, you know what I mean. So, you let your mind think. So, tell me, same options. Spring container detecting and throwing the exception, so it doesn't start. Second option, business logic failure. Third option, all okay. First, second, third. Yes, the first option. Guys, here the value of required is true, making this dependency mandatory or required, mandatory or optional, mandatory. I mean, mandatory or required is wrong, mandatory or optional, I meant. Of course, mandatory is equal to required. And you see, don't trust, just run it, observe and conclude. So you can see that it started creating the dependent bean, but the moment it come to field level injection, field level DI, the surface level is unsatisfied dependency. And the real cause is no such bean definition. It is not saying non-unique bean definition. I mean, no unique bean definition. It is no such bean. And it is telling you so clear cut. It was expecting one bean which qualifies. Which qualifier? Somewhere it will tell you. HTTP transport 1, 2, 3. It looked into the namespace, did not find anything. Container itself doesn't start. Understood the exception? Let's play the opposite way. See, unless and until you try, you'll never feel the confidence. You'll never be like, confident in answering. Sorry. Required, false. Okay. Now tell me what will happen. Same options. Spring container throws the exception. The business logic failure are all okay. Everyone is understanding it. I mean, at least, see, I can always talk to those who are responding, which is very less number. I don't even know you guys other than those 20 or 25 people who keep answering. Start responding and I'll start knowing you. Anyway, so the point is, of course, you are right. The container goes ahead saying that it is an optional dependency. So not my headache. Not my job to match it. So of course, but the dependency injection will fail, causing a business logic failure. This is what I was trying to say all the time. So just confirm it. So as you can see, the dependency injection failed, but this is not a cause. This is not an alarm at all, because in constructor fields are not, the memory is not allocated for instance variable. So this is all fine, but the warning or the alarm should sound here. By init method also, if your dependencies are null, 100% there's a bug in the code. Okay, debug it accordingly. So here you saw the test transport got created, container happily started, but the moment you started calling your business logic method, since the field level dependency injection had failed, the whole thing, I mean the null pointer exception and the code breaks. Understanding the difference between required and not required? A simple one. Okay. So of course we don't want that. The suggestion is, see guys, the default values are thought intelligently. So in most of it is called as intelligent default, by the way. So the point is, don't use this. Make sure that, see, look at my reasoning. Look at the statement I'm making. We don't want the container to start if we have messed up something, if we have not managed some things right. So don't, in the rarest cases, I can't even immediately give you use case. In most of the cases, keep it auto-wired with default mandatory as in required equal to true, and let it fail right at the beginning. So looking at the server side console, you can debug it and go ahead. Okay, so I'm giving you the code with no error. So that is it. Last combination, and I'll take you to next major step of today, MVC. So here, just make it as prototype and observe the changes. So how do I make it as prototype? You will see with one word, the whole life cycle will change. The whole life cycle invocation will check. Yeah, Shubham, in a minute, I'll send you this. So here, just add a scope and the value as. So don't run it. I want to talk to you first. Just want to show you the impact of, you know already the impact. So let me ask you a question. So here, when the Spring container starts, means when line number 10 is executed, which beans would be created? Don't go by memory, go by understanding. So will test bean be created in the Java heap? 100% yes, singleton and eager. Will HTTP transport bean will it be created in the Java heap? No, singleton, but lazy, only on the first demand. So 100% not prototype. How about ATM implementation bean? Here also not, because all we have is a prototype bean. Everyone understanding it? Same as yesterday. Now you'll see the message, the test transport done and the Spring container starts. This is where we are making the first demand. So at this point, which bean will be instantiated, loaded, instantiated? ATM bean. So go here and here now. So it will start. So you'll definitely see in constructor of whatever ATM implementation, and this will be null because it is a field level dependency. Next one you'll see the fields getting this thing. So HTTP transport now. Okay, sorry. So what was this HTTP transport? Singleton and lazy. So tell me, is the dependency ready or will it be created now? In short, yeah, you tell me. Of course, it will be created now because it was not available in the heap at all. So you'll definitely see in HTTP constructor, dependency injection, all of that. And then you have business logic with the HTTP layer. Now we are making a second demand to your prototype bean. So tell me, will you have a separate ATM bean or the same will be shared? Everyone knows the answer. Same, separate, new one, exactly. So you'll again see in ATM, but what is the dependency? Dependency is HTTP, dependency is singleton. So will there be two HTTP beans or the single dependency would be shared? Single dependency. Yesterday, you remember we had drawn diagrams. Change the dependency to a prototype dependency two different instances. So run it to confirm. All I changed is singleton to prototype, and a completely different life cycle starts. Watch the console, understand the output. Since the only bean which was singleton and eager was test, only one was created at the container startup. In our actual code, all our beans are going to be singleton eager already. Next one. The dependency is not available during instantiation. It's just an instance creation. But of course, here it is creating the dependency. Singleton and lazy. So that will get created on the one instance only on the first demand. This is by the time in it, of course, field level DI has worked. So you see the dependency. This is your business logic. This is your second demand to what? To your prototype bean. But is it sharing the same dependency, or is it having a different instance? Same dependency. And because it is prototype, two different instances, ref1 double equal to ref2 false. And which method, which life cycle hook is not called? Destroy hook. Because there's no, because the scope is prototype. Understood all the statements completely? Okay, so I'll make a zip of it and send you right away in case you missed out on anything in between. Day 15.2.
Ma'am?
Yes?
Ma'am, no such bin error आ रहा है मैम, definition found वैसे करके आ रहा
वो
है.
HTTP 123 create नहीं किया होगा. एक सेकंड ना. You may not have corrected the spelling. Check the qualifier में क्या डाला है देखो.
Okay, ma'am.
Yes, I will.
HTTP transport, ma'am.
एक second then. I'm just in the middle of sending something. Okay, I've sent you the zip. This one, Rajiv, right? Here, check this. Once again, tell me the actual exception name, please. Is it non-unique or no unique? No unique bean definition आ रहा है या no bean definition found आ रहा है?
Ma'am, paste कर रहा हूँ ma'am.
Okay. वो सिर्फ root cause paste करो, पूरा stack trace मत paste करो. Guys, help him. Guess his error. No such bean definition. No bean by the name my ATM. Okay, so my ATM का qualifier. See, people are already helping you, Rajiv. You should thank all of them. ATM bean खोलो और यहाँ पे add component और वो ये चाहिए qualifier चाहिए. Just check. I've anyway sent the code, Rajiv. Okay, so check it out against the code I have sent and find it. So there is a problem in the my ATM. ATM implementation bean. Check it, correct it. Okay. So this is what is the foundation, the basics of understanding the Spring container, Spring Bean lifecycle, and the these things. What was that? Other thing I want to say, yeah, the wiring part and the auto wiring and the annotations. Now our real stuff will start. So what is that real stuff? So-called is we are entering the MVC. But since you have not heard about MVC pattern, I'll first explain that MVC pattern. I'm sharing with you one ready-made demo which has servlet, JSP, Java Bean. But what I'm going to start you really on after the break looks like the Spring MVC implementation. So here, okay. So here, okay, you can start reading. But in the meantime, I'll send you this. In the sequence, read this. In the meantime, I'm sending you one zip file, MVC help ka. Yeah, so this just download. It is one of the, actually wait a second. I'll share the whole day 15 help because you're going to require it sooner or later. There are a lot of diagrams and all, but I'll tell you exactly what is worth going through in a immediate manner. A14 MVC help, you have it already, I have shared it already. Anyway, I don't know, like I've sent it already. Anyway, doesn't matter. Because I was hoping to start it sometime. Anyway, just a second. Yeah. I'm sending you this. Please take day 15. If you have it, maybe MVC help in day 14, open that, whatever, wherever you get it. So now, when you open this MVC help, I've written in the sequence, but that is in a shortcut manner. So these are the what you say, proper readmes. So open MVC details and start reading. I'm just going to give you the background and we'll stop here for a half an hour break. So here there are certain, sorry for this. Okay, so open MVC details, and here I'm talking about the web application development using two different models. So one is called as Model 1 architecture. Other one is called as Model 2 architecture. So what is Model 2? Model 2 is nothing but MVC. Okay. So here, read this. I've written in detail. Just read this much. I'll explain. So here, when you say Model 1, that is what we have been following all these days. Okay. So we were using servlets earlier, and then we were started using servlets and JSP. So servlet and JSPs are the main main technologies, main web component technologies. And where is it? We had separated our business logic in a Java bean. Okay, so you can read all of it in a detailed manner. Instead, I will explain my diagrams. It is that way. It becomes easier. So you will see MVC diagrams. So first is observe. Observe carefully. I have taken you, I have shown you, I have explained you, trained you the same way. So see this. First look at the diagram, and maybe in the break time you can just vertically read that readme if you want. So client sends. Oh, so this was the first 4 days in our first week in our advanced Java. So web client sends a request. That time you did not know anything about JSP Java Bean, so we had only servlet. Okay, so which were the job list? Which was the job list? Everything had to be done by the servlet. There was no separation of concerns. Okay, so the title is Model 1 architecture with only servlet. So it had to do the request processing, business logic, managing the DAO, page navigation. You remember server pull, client pull, the response generation and all. But thankfully, we had learned JDBC earlier, so you already knew the DAO layer. So now we have replaced JDBC by Hibernate. So servlet doesn't care. Servlet will simply call the DAO layer method. DAO layer uses POJOs for reflecting the database data, and you have a database. So tell me, and of course, after calling the DAO layer method, you have a response here. Send the response to the client. What do you say? Completing request response loop. Are you 100% clear about these layers? We have done it in the first 4 days. Okay, then I took you to Model 1 architecture. I'm not yet gone to MVC, mind me. So here, this thing with JSP. But that time, I showed you two components, JSP and Java Bean, which is what we were completing yesterday and all. I mean, we did not complete, that's a different one. So, but the point is, so client, okay, sorry. So why Java Bean? A clear-cut separation. Separation between what and what? Separation between a business logic, DAO management logic from the request processing. I mean, from the UI, from the presentation logic. Presentation logic versus business logic. So how was the data flow? Client was sending a request to JSP. So, we had written login form. Login form was submitted to, let's say, validate JSP. So request processing, managing the beans using JSP colon use bean, set property, get property, EL syntax and all. And then there was a Java bean. Java bean was holding the data members, which holds the state of the client. It had the business logic, and in business logic, we were calling a dow layer method. So guys, dow layer to below is all the same. Zero changes in servlet based versus JSP Java bean based. Understood this also? Relating to model 1 architecture with JSP also? So when you hear the word model 1 architecture, there was no specific rule. We could write anything and everything in servlet. We could write anything and everything in JSP. First day of JSP when we had scriptlets and things in Java Bean. But when you come to MVC, MVC is a pattern standing for model view controller. It is also recognized by the word model 2 architecture. Model 2 architecture is equal to MVC pattern. So there are two options. Okay, let me say this. Pattern is what? Standard design practice, or this is nothing but a design pattern. Why MVC? One word answer: proper separation of concerns, proper well-defined separation of responsibilities. So can you just use your servlet JSP Java Bean and add any logic, or is there a predefined pattern? Or I mean, do you have to stick to a particular rules? Answer is it is all rules. So what are the rules here? The servlet acts as the overall controller. So okay, why don't I explain with the diagram? So web client will send the request, and that will be intercepted by that's a centralized navigation. It is called as the pattern. Another pattern is called as front controller. So listen to this. Any web client, there can be tons of web clients here, number of web clients here, will be sending the request to the common servlet. It is called as a gatekeeper, common entry point. And that servlet will decide the further navigation. So the entire control of navigation will be with one servlet. So if you are suppose solving, let me talk an example. So C for controller, controllers typically implemented by servlets. Now, if the request, listen to the question I'm asking you. I'm going to ask you a question. Suppose here web client has clicked on the link, show login form, or okay, forget show login form. Your web client clicks on the link, user login. So tell me, what is it? What does that response should contain? Should it contain the login form, as in show form phase, or are we in the process form phase? I'll repeat the question again. When the client clicks on the link user login, what is it you want to do? You want to show the login form, or you want to process the login form? Tell me, show or process. Of course, it is show login form. So what is your centralized dispatch? Okay, that's a term which our Spring uses. It is called as a centralized dispatcher. That what? The heart of the MVC. So here, this this servlet will see you don't require any business logic. If you don't require business logic, will it go to the Java Bean and execute the business logic? Of course not. It will directly, okay, it will, okay, let me use the correct words. It forwards the client. The moment I use the word forward, which navigation are we talking about? Client will CP or SP? Of course, SP. In the same request or in the next request? In the same request. So the same request is stretched to visit the JSP. So here you will have login.jsp. It will send the response, request dispatcher.forward, rd.forward, control comes back, and the response is sent. So tell me, what will web client see when the first request response loop is over? Easy question. I'll just finish this and we'll take a break. Of course, a login form. Okay. Now, So after the login form is downloaded, web a person fills out the form and clicks on the login button, clicks on the submit button. So control again comes to that centralized dispatcher, the front controller. It is called as the gatekeeper, a servlet. So now think and answer. In this case, is it a show form phase or is it a process form phase? Easy questions I'm asking you, and I've used all these terms earlier. And of course, process form. So guys, answer the next question. Should your dispatcher servlet, I mean the name of the Spring MVC itself is this. Anyway, should your central navigation servlet, should it forward the client directly to your JSP based view layer, or it should call the business logic for authentication? I'll repeat the question again. I said form is submitted. I already got the answer. Now what you want to do is process the form. So of course you have to call the front controller, the navigation controller has to call the business logic. Okay. Now I have a question for you. All these are like, common sense based. So naturally, where are we going to write the business logic? In servlet, in JSP, or in a Java Bean? In a Java Bean. Everyone agrees? Now the next level question. Do you think this navigation controller, this central dispatcher, that itself should have a code to manage the Java Bean? Or would you like to write a separate servlet, such as a validation servlet, to manage the Java Bean? It's an obvious answer. Separation always is the key to success. So guys, one is your just a navigation controller servlet, a dispatcher kind of a servlet. So dispatcher servlet will forward the client to your validation servlet. And who will manage the Java Bean? The dispatcher servlet or your login servlet or validation servlet? Which one? Validation servlet. The dispatcher servlet job will be just navigation, entire case study or entire web application. So now that login servlet, whatever, validation servlet, will call the Java Bean method. Guys, Java Bean just has a business logic. You have been developing Java Beans for what, more than a week. And then it calls the down layer, and this flow never changes. Okay, so bean calling down layer hitting the database with the query, getting the result. And this result is now sent back to your validation servlet. But now, do you want to go back to that horrible approach where we used to write, pw.print and generate all the HTML? Do you want to mix up the response generation in servlet? Never. So once your results are ready, the navigation controller checks what is the status, what is the navigation outcome. Is it a valid login or is it a invalid login? And accordingly, the user, the client, will be forwarded to, let's say, success.jsp, successful login page, or the invalid login page. So this is what is nothing but your exact separation of concerns, predefined separation of concerns, where we say Java Bean acts as a Java Bean and the POJO. M for MV, M in MVC's model. Model is the data. So currently, POJO is the stakeholder which represents the database data, and the business logic part is in the Java Bean. View, V for view, JSP based view layer, and C for controller, the overall control, overall navigation control, and of course managing the beans will be left with your control, will be left with the servlet. So if you use this MVC pattern, who is implementing this MVC pattern in this picture? Programmer or a third-party container? P or container? Answer is programmer. Means what? Guys, you will have to pitch in. You will have to write that dispatcher servlet, which dispatches it to view layers or the further to the servlets and whatever. You will have to write that all those validation servlet and the Java beans and what and the view layer. So which is a better strategy? Enter ready-made implementation. See, pattern is about the standard design practices, design guidelines, and framework is nothing but the ready-made implementation of standard design patterns. So there are two options. One is the hard way, one is the easy way. Of course, we'll go for easy way. So what is the hard way? Don't involve any frameworks, such as there are three major frameworks: Spring MVC, Struts MVC, and Java Server Faces MVC, popular names. So you say, okay, I don't want to do anything. I want to slog. So be there, welcome to that, and develop everything. But of course, when you join companies and all, your business logic or the functional logic will be so complex. You will say, I don't have time to develop everything from scratch. Give me ready-made implementation of MVC pattern. And which is the implementer we are going to use after the break? Who is going to implement this MVC pattern for us? Spring Framework. And here, if you remember the other day, just a sec, before I'm stopping in a minute. So if you remember the basic diagrams, when I showed you why Spring is called as a framework, because it implements, it gives you standard implementation, ready-made implementation of standard patterns. So yesterday and partly today, we were in Spring Core Container. I have not explained spell. Spell stands for Spring Expression Language. At proper time, I'll explain. So now, after the break, which module we are going to enter, guys? Obvious question. Which module are we going to enter? We were in Core Container. Where we are going to enter after this? After the break? No idea? Of course, a web module. And that web module contains the ready-made implementation of the MVC pattern, which we will start step-by-step manner. Okay, so here after the break, I mean, of course, I'm going to give you some this. So be prepared for two things. Keep some writing material ready, because understanding Spring MVC flow is a most essential training you need. Okay, so if you see, I've given you all the help. So just a second. So no, not this. I mean, I don't want to refer to this. So just a second, okay. Where is that other diagram? No, not this also. This is there, but okay, I had a better drawn diagram. Anyway, so listen to this. Let me not stretch you this. So I have already drawn all this, but looks quite complicated. So guys, we are going to draw the piece by piece, block by block Spring MVC flow diagram. And if I keep drawing only, then you feel bored and you don't connect. So we will draw the block in the diagram and we'll code accordingly. So the last instruction before we stop here, please keep your writing material ready. I'll be drawing in pen. You can do the same, and keep your STS also ready. And we are going to start with the basic as in first level implementation of Spring MVC. This won't have any data access layer. So focus on Spring MVC alone. And we are going to test the Spring MVC flow. I have already written complete instructions step by step. Open this, open that. So we will do that. And once you settle in that, then I'll tell you more concepts such as model attributes, model map, etc. And time permitting, I'm not sure. We will just do the integration of Spring MVC at the front end and the back end with the Hibernate. But I'm not sure whether the next 2 hours will be sufficient for that. So we'll take it. At least Spring MVC, we will get started. So let us have a break here of a half an hour. So 11:15. So around 11:40, 11:45. Okay, let's make it as a 11:45. We'll resume. Come back with your STS and all that computer setup and some writing material. We'll resume. So see you in half an hour.